This is ODAAT Chat, your instant connection to recovery and community, one day at a time. This podcast may contain strong language, sexual content, and spiritual truth. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to ODAAT Chat, where we talk about how to stay sober one day at a time. My name is Arlina, and I'll be your host. Before I launch into what this podcast is all about, I have to give a big shout out to Ron, Lynn, and Jackie for becoming OC members. ODAAT Chat is funded by listeners like you, so if you'd like to help keep it rolling, please consider a $5 monthly membership. To do so, just visit odaatchat.com and you'll see the membership donation on the right. If you are new here, this is a podcast where my guest and I talk about how to recover from alcoholism and addictions. We typically spend the first half of the podcast on what happened and the second half on the solutions and lessons learned that contribute to long-term recovery. Today, I have a very special guest, Daphne Willis, and now I know if you've heard other episodes, you're probably thinking, she says that all the time, but in this case, it's especially true. No offense to any of my other guests, they're actually all very special to me. However, Daphne Willis is a Sony recording artist located in Nashville, Tennessee. She has on her hands a smash hit with Somebody Someone. It has well over 18 million views and counting. That's amazing. I'll actually put links to it on the website. But, the first time I heard it, I actually cried when I heard the song. It's so touching and sung with such authenticity that I instantly connected to it, and I think you will too. So just a heads up, I babble quite a bit because I was super excited to speak with Daphne, but she just shares so much about her struggles and how she has learned to set boundaries and practice self-care that she's been able to maintain sobriety over 2 years now, and I think you'll really enjoy this conversation. I know I did. I hope you do too. Let me know what you think on the ODAAT Chat Facebook page, and with that, please enjoy this episode with Daphne Willis. So Daphne, thank you so much for joining the ODAAT Chat podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you because I came across a song of yours on Facebook. I think by the time I had seen it, it already had like 500,000 shares. So that has to mean that this video has been played like millions of times. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's been, thank you. It's been an incredible journey to see the song really get out there and have the message. The song is dedicated to anyone who's been affected by mental health issues or addiction issues or homelessness or all the above. So when I put it out there, I wasn't really sure, if it was going to have a connection and impact, people the way that I had hoped. And it's been all of that and more. It's been wonderful.
And more. Yeah, I could really, when I listened to the song for the first one, it brought tears to my eyes. I mean, I've been in recovery for 23 years, and when I first got sober, people in my community said that if you stick around long enough, you'll go to a lot of funerals. And while tons of people have been saved, I've been to more than my fair share of funerals and have seen some tragic stuff. So that really just got to my heart. This was clearly a work from your soul. So thank you so much and the song is called Somebody Someone. I will have links to it on the podcast so that everyone can see it. So yeah, that's great. So let's just back up a little bit because you're actually a Sony ATV songwriter, singer, but you're also a mental health and recovery advocate. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, but you spend what do you spend the majority of your time on?
Full time, I'm a songwriter and a recording artist. So I tour perpetually throughout the year, and then the songwriting is also, that's a full time kind of a job. But I don't know if I'd call it a job. It's it's my passion, so I feel very fortunate that I get to do it. And then furthermore, being an advocate, the mental health advocacy side of what I do, I feel like I've been really lucky to be able to weave the two together. And when I perform, to to audiences, being able to incorporate not only songs that I've written that are mental health or recovery related, but also being able to perform at fundraisers for organizations that are, mental health awareness organizations, and also, just writing, and then also in the songwriting world, writing songs that are, revolving around those issues as well.
Yeah, no, that's a deeply personal calling, and you definitely have a gift.
Thank you.
So let's start. I'm just really curious about who you are, how you got here. Maybe we can just get into your story a little bit, and maybe you can just share, like, where did you grow up, and tell me a little bit about your family of origin.
Sure. I was born in Texas. I was born in San Antonio, and lived there very briefly until I was 6 months old. I lived very briefly outside of LA in California until I was 5. But most of my upbringing was in Chicago, so I always, consider myself to be a Chicagoan, and grew up in the northwest suburbs in a city called Palatine, and then when I was 18, I moved into the city, and I went to DePaul University for a couple of years, and then ended up getting signed to a record deal halfway through college, and I dropped out.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was it's a crazy story too. I had actually made this little EP of like acoustic recordings, and I got it on this. You can do these little sub-licensing contracts where they'll play your music. When you're in like PF Chang's or
Sure. Oh yeah.
Right. So they put my music on American Airlines flights. Back in the day, they used to play music on the planes, and there's like radio station channels or whatever. So anyways, the president of this record label was on a flight, and his iPod died, and he plugged his headphones in, and my song was playing, and he decided that he wanted to sign me.
Oh my God.
Hilarious. Yeah.
That is really incredible. Wow. Just the chances of that. That's amazing.
It's very serendipitous indeed.
Yeah, it was meant to be.
So then I ended up moving down to Nashville shortly thereafter. I think I was in the city for about 6 years, and then I've been in Nashville ever since. And in terms of my family, my parents are both, I come from a musical background. So my mom was a vocal major. They both attended UT Austin. So my mom was a vocal major, and my dad was an recording engineering major, or minor, and then he majored in business. And he has worked in the music industry my entire life.
Wow.
Worked at Sony BMG, and he was he was in sales at Sony BMG, and he is now in a company that is part of UMG. So he's been kind of all over the music industry.
Wow, how convenient to have parents in the business.
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not totally sure that I would have ended up doing this line of work if it's like the cart before the horse, or the other way around. So I'm not sure I would have gotten into music had it not been for them, or, so very, very lucky that ended up happening.
That's super cool. It just seems like either music is in your blood or it's not, right?
It seems like it. I've run into a few people where they're like, I don't know where this came from. My parents aren't musical at all, or whatever. But for the most part, yeah, I would have to agree with you that it seems to be kind of an innate thing that you're handed down, for sure.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. Because this is a recovery podcast, I'm just curious to hear about things like, one of the common themes that I hear a lot is that people didn't feel like they fit in, or they didn't belong, or there was some sort of element of self-consciousness growing up, and it sort of led to things like drugs and alcohol. Is that a theme that has run through your life as well?
Sure. I was, there was sexual abuse that happened when I was in junior high, which obviously is very traumatic and led to a lot of self-medication when I was in high school.
Did you say it was junior high when that happened?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you were like 14 maybe? 15?
Yeah.
14, 15.
13.
Oh, good Lord. And was it somebody you knew?
Yes, it was. It was another student.
Oh, okay. Wow. Oh, that's tough when it's another student.
Yeah.
Actually, what am I talking about? It's tough any way you look at it, but okay. So that kind of, you feel like that kind of set the stage for you, like
It did. I was also bullied when I was growing up before that happened, and I think that definitely there was a lot of that going on, for sure.
okay. So when did you start? What did you start with? Was it drinking or alcohol or maybe something
Yes, it was
else?
alcohol. Well, alcohol and marijuana.
Okay. How old were you the first time you drank? Or can you tell me about that first experience?
Oh, I have no idea. I don't remember, to be honest.
You don't remember how old you were? You don't remember the first
Oh, how
experience?
old I was? I
Yeah.
believe I was. Well, I started drinking when I was in sixth or seventh grade, so I was 12.
Oh, okay. So 12 years old, first time you drank. Was it like at someone's house or like a friend's house where you sneak it, that kind of situation?
I'm not on. To be honest, I'm not really sure how it's. I think I was at. My parents had a lake house up in Wisconsin, and we would go up there, and I think that somehow or another I ended up hanging out with some other kids that were older than I was, and they were drinking, so I just drank with them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's pretty common. Okay, so it started with a little bit of drinking and marijuana, and how long did that go on for?
I mean, I've been sober now for almost 2 years,
Two
so.
years sober now. Okay, and so when you first started drinking and using, was it sort of the typical, it was fun and then fun with problems and then all kinds of problems at the end?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's such an interesting thing too, because like there were times it started out that way, yeah, where it was like, oh, this is so exciting and fun, and we're, just messing around and being kids. And certainly there has always been an element of that when I've just gone out with friends and it's been social and things like that. But there's also been the element where it's been like more of used as more of a crutch or a need to escape whatever feelings that I felt like I wasn't able to handle or cope with. So I think when that started happening was more in like junior high and high school is when that kind of started happening, and then it was always kind of both, but then also like when if I would be drinking by myself, which
Oh,
is
okay.
not fun and not really, especially when I guess it's more like when the reasoning behind why you're drinking is, coming from a dark place is when, it's a problem to me.
Right, absolutely. So did you have some negative consequences? Like did you lose relationships or
Well, I mean, I was actually in high school, I was fairly I was really social and well accepted for who I was. I was out to a lot of my friends when I was in high school, um, but there was always kind of this dark, cloud following me around. I suffered from a lot of depression, so it was kind of I didn't really like. And I had good grades. I think that I would have had better grades. I missed a lot of school. I got in trouble a lot. I got arrested like 5 times before I was 18 for like misdemeanor stuff, like drinking tickets and being at parties and stuff like that, which was never anything like awful, like, but still stressful when you're a kid to have, being arrested is not, it's just never fun.
that's all bad. I mean, how did your parents respond to that, you getting arrested?
Well, I would get punished and stuff like that, but also like I think part of the reason why I was just very good at making people think that I was actually fine because I had good grades and because I was just able to, kind of shine my way through it, if you will. And so I would get punished and like, have a conversation, or I also had a therapist, so I was going to therapy. There was a one point in time when I was in high school where a friend of mine, there was an intervention, and I had been doing like a lot of harder drugs. So in high school, I kind of got into more like acid and cocaine and mushrooms and all kinds of things when I was in high school. So one of my friends felt like, it was really getting out of hand. So he told a counselor at school. They called my parents in, and it was either, I would get in a program with, a therapist at school, or go into an inpatient. And I really, at the time, I really didn't want to do the inpatient. So I decided to do the therapy. So I started seeing a therapist in high school, and going to see my counselor at high school a lot more often, which I think helped me to an extent, but I really wasn't ready to handle a lot of some of the emotions. So I really just kind of kept self-medicating throughout high school and college, and yeah.
So when you say you weren't ready to handle some of the emotions, you were just not ready to like process like the sexual abuse and the bullying? Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, and did you have like some sort of self-awareness that was related to your depression?
Kind of, yeah, I'm sure I did on some level, but I just wasn't really there, so.
Were your parents aware of what had happened to you?
No, I had not told anybody, no.
Oh, you didn't tell anybody, so you were carrying around this secret and... You know what? That is rough. And I had some of that too when I was growing up. All I knew was to keep it a secret, right? But I didn't have any awareness that was driving my behavior. I grew up super religious. Did you grow up religious at all, or any kind of?
No, actually, we grew up. My parents took us to church when we were kids just to see if we wanted to go, if we enjoyed it, and we didn't really connect with it, so we just never went. It was always an option, but we just never went.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because people who don't grow up with religion or kind of get this idea of that there's these expectations that you're supposed to be, idea of perfectionism, let's say.
Right.
And I don't know if that was your experience, but that was definitely mine, which kind of makes it, more shameful when something like that happens to you.
Absolutely. I think that as humans and just in society, that message is drilled home to us, whether it's religion, whether it's from an overzealous parent, whether it's from what we see on TV, whether it's from our teachers or the other students and peers around us. I think that, that pressure to fit into some kind of normality and not create issues and not create trouble and not have issues, to be, basically, like you were saying, perfect. I think whether it's coming from religion or coming from elsewhere, I feel like everybody experiences that to an extent. And that often leads to people not feeling like they can talk about certain issues, and like they cannot, that those issues are something that they should be dealt with, that they should be dealing with on their own, basically.
Did any of your counselors ever ask you if anything had happened to you?
No, and, honestly, from a counseling perspective, like from a psychological perspective, it would have been unprofessional for them to do that, because it's kind of, when you're counseling somebody who has potentially experienced those things, it's vital for that person to be the one who brings it up. And it can take a really, really long time for that to happen, but it is vital for the person, or the patient rather, to be in control of the situation. I've had a therapist that I've been working with for like 7 years now, and I'm pretty sure she knew, but I wasn't ready to talk about a lot of things. I wasn't ready to talk about a lot of it until I was ready, and that was, really just about 2 years ago or less. And so the fact that she didn't bring it up or push me really, I think, has in the long run made me feel a lot more in control about the entire situation. Because the brain is only ready to handle those kinds of things when it's ready. And if you push it too soon, you can really do a lot of damage.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, I am very impressed that you're able to speak about it with such candor. It sounds like it doesn't have a lot of power over you now. Is that true? Or
Not totally true. I still have, you know, that's one series of events, and there's been a lot of stuff. As most people who deal with addiction know, you get yourself into a lot of situations that end up being traumatizing later on when you process them. And so I still find myself processing a lot of things that have happened to me. But yeah, I definitely feel a lot more in control, and as though I have a lot more power over those feelings. Definitely. I've definitely done a lot of work, and I work with 2 different therapists and a psychiatrist. So I put in a lot of time, which is obviously, that's what you do, right?
yeah.
Recovery, it's do the work. So, but yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. It has taken me quite a while to get to the point where I could even, really talk about it like this. So
Yeah, no, you can tell when some people are just newly grappling with something like that it's very difficult to talk about. But
sure, yeah.
I can tell that you have done the work and that you do sound like you're at peace, with the most part. So I'm always curious about the different ways people get sober. I grew up religious, and I'll separate that from spiritual, right? Because when I got sober, I went through a 12-step program, and they separated religion from spirituality for me, which was super helpful.
Right.
Do you have a spiritual practice or a concept of a higher power? What does that look like for you?
I do. I have a therapist that I work with and we do, some different forms of meditation that involve, bringing in a higher self element, or a higher power element. And it can take on many different forms, and a lot of times it's really just a feeling or an emotion or a presence of love and understanding or curiosity. It's not really defined by anything other than that. And so that would be my closest way of explaining, the spirituality side of what I found that has helped me heal through a lot of what I've been dealing with in recovery. But I certainly wasn't raised, I'm not religious, and have never really gravitated toward, organized religion or anything like that. But spirituality, I think, is part of just being in touch with yourself and feeling connected to yourself and to the universe. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
No, I love that.
Different, everybody has their own relationship with themselves in that way.
Absolutely. I really do feel like it's different for everyone. But you touched on something that I think is really interesting, which is feeling connected. There was this really great TED Talk. I can't remember the name of this guy, but it was like everything that you know about addiction is wrong. And his basic premise was that people that are in addiction are sort of wrapped up in being disconnected, right? And a lot of the therapies around healing addiction is through feeling connected, whether it's connected to a higher power or a community, that it's the connection, like not feeling isolated anymore is something that helps us heal. Has that been your experience as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of that whole concept of feeling connected, I think, is to feel like, your emotions and the way that and your feelings are something that are, not something that isolate you, and not something that you have to completely handle alone, that you can feel like basically it's this feeling of empowerment, right? That you have the ability to overcome these things and to process and to handle all of this stuff, and that you don't have to, escape or run from them. That this is my experience anyways. Because a lot of my experiences were drinking or using drugs to escape from emotions and from feelings and things that I didn't feel like I could handle. So having that concept that you're not handling them alone, or you can inject this feeling of love or understanding or connection into something that is causing you pain to create a different feeling, is kind of what that connectivity means for me.
It sounds kind of very Buddhist, but like the mindfulness and co-creating with a higher power. Yeah, that's very cool. So you've been on this journey of recovery for, it sounds like it's been more than 2 years, actually. It feels like, recovery starts before we actually put down the drink or the drugs. So can you walk me through that, maybe like the first 6 months of your recovery? How were you like obsessed with drinking and using, or finding it hard to stay stopped?
Well, I mean, for me, I tend to, I haven't had a super hard time staying away from anything in particular. I just am for me, like I said, it's more about escapism. So, like when I quit drinking, I was still using some like weed and CBD stuff for like anxiety. I was also working with a psychiatrist to get on the right meds. And over the course of that time, then the marijuana got out of hand to where I felt like that was really a crutch, and I was like using that too much, so I got rid of that. Then I was drinking caffeine. Then the caffeine got out of hand, so I had to quit drinking caffeine. So over the process of the last like year and a half, I've just realized like I seem to have a hard time with moderation. And so like I can do none. Like I have no problem doing none of something. It's when I start trying to do a little bit of something that offers me some kind of a buzz or some kind of a release, or an endorphin release or an escape, that I get into trouble. So I've kind of found that it's easier for me to just do nothing, and slowly been accepting that.
Yeah, no, I totally get it.
Even caffeine. I've been off caffeine for 3 months now, and that's like, oh my God.
No coffee. Oh my goodness. That's brave.
Yeah. But I mean, I was drinking like 700 milligrams of caffeine a day, which is that's dangerous. Like I could have had a heart attack,
Oh, smokes. Yeah, that's dedication.
That's medicating. That is definitely medicating. And so I'm just like, gotta find, figure out, ways to quit doing that. So
what are some of your healthier coping mechanisms when you feel stressed out?
Yeah, so I've gotten into, I've always worked out. And like you said, I have been in recovery for a long time before I put down the drinking and the drugs. I was definitely, and there was a point when my 20s, I'm 30 now, but there was a point in my early 20s when I quit for a whole year, or 9 months or something like that. I quit drinking for like 9 months after I had actually had a seizure when I was in college, and I pretty much almost died from I had been on like a 2-week bender and had a seizure, and after that I quit. So yeah, I mean, it's been like, I've only been like, technically in recovery for 2 years, but I feel like it's been a long time where I've been even writing songs about, taking the step and, getting there and things like that. So
yeah, I think that's pretty normal. I've been in recovery circles for a long time, and it does seem like there needs to be this process where you wrestle with the question, like, am I an alcoholic? How much is too much? Have I crossed the line? Like that line of questioning takes a little while to sort that all out and to come to a conclusion, because you kind of have to come up against some life experiences that challenge you, and then just see how you can handle it. Sometimes things go well, and sometimes they don't.
Right. No, exactly. And you can go back and forth with that. I went back and forth with that for a very long time. Like, is this something I can control? Trying to control something that you can't control is, a very frustrating experience, and I just got sick of that feeling of not being able to really have a handle on it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So, what do you think was the biggest thing that helped you get sober?
Well, I think that I started to get to a point where I was seeing people that care about me being concerned, and it was affecting my career. It was affecting my health. It was definitely affecting my bank account. And I just decided that I also, started seeing somebody romantically that and we are still together. And I just knew that the decisions that I was making for myself were unhealthy and not the kinds of decisions that I want to be making for a partner. Basically, I would like to be a different kind of partner for my partner. Mm-hmm. And so that was a large part of the decision as well. So it was just kind of like everything in my life was telling me to quit, and so I did.
There you go. And do you continue to do therapy? Are you still involved in that practice? Yeah.
I just had therapy this morning. I do.
No wonder you sound so calm.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Just spent all morning processing.
It's hard because I'm on the road a lot, but I have a therapist that will Skype with me, and I have another one that I see when I am in town who's amazing. And I'm also doing I do acupuncture. I work out. I work out. I do yoga. I meditate. I'm just one of those people who has, some people, I feel like everybody needs a different level of self-care.
Right.
And I think that I've slowly come to terms with the fact that I just need a certain amount of self-care. And if I skip steps in my self-care, I notice I suffer from that. So really taking the time and making sure I'm taking the right steps and being really present for those steps is super important for me.
I'm glad that you said that you have come to accept the level of self-care required, because I think for a lot of people it's like, oh my God, I am so high maintenance. I had no idea. It's like, I thought I was this easygoing person, but no, it's like I have to pray, meditate, write, be of service, exercise, all this stuff just to feel okay. It's a lot.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about your practice on the road. So it doesn't sound like you have a consistent schedule. So
yeah, I have zero routine. So my schedule is literally week to week, day to day, very, very different. I'm constantly in new places, sleeping in new situations, traveling, meeting new people. I think one of the main things I do is to work out. I make a time for myself in the mornings. I give myself an hour to do whatever I want at the gym. If I can't get to a gym, I travel with a yoga mat and some bands, like the resistance bands.
Oh, sure.
I can literally make a gym out of anything. All I need is 5 feet by 3 feet,
Right.
So I can do that. Meditating helps. Also, I'm super lucky. I'm a songwriter and a singer, and music is one of the best therapies, in my opinion, that there is. So being able to also, I'm always traveling with the guitar. I'm always in a session writing with somebody, so there's always that. Having that creative space all the time is also, very, very helpful. But yeah, I feel like the routine thing is hard. I make sure that I sleep, and I've found that learning boundaries and how to make boundaries and being super okay with telling people that you're leaving or you're going to go back and get some sleep, or no, I need, 2 hours to do this, or I need a break here, and really being okay with that and getting really good at those boundaries has been a beautiful thing for me as well.
It's my understanding that in the music industry, there's a lot of opportunity for drugs and alcohol. And Are you exposed to that on a regular basis? Or?
Oh, totally. Yeah, and the thing is, it's really hard because a lot of the time, I mean, it's free all the time. Like, we just get offered free alcohol everywhere we go.
Let me buy you a drink.
Like, yeah, let me buy your drink, or they just put a shot on stage, or, But like I said, it's never been difficult for me to not drink. It's more like making sure I'm not in the mindset where I feel like I need to escape, in any way, shape, or form. But honestly, like, I don't know, drinking on stage it's been interesting. Like, I've gone back and forth, even when I was drinking, like, I've gone back and forth drinking on stage and not drinking on stage, like drinking when I get off stage, and then I've gone the other way as well, and drinking before I go on stage, while I'm on stage, and when I get off stage. But
before, during, and after.
Yeah, before, during, and after. But it's been interesting because now that I'm realizing that not everybody is drinking, and there are a lot of people that are not really drinking, or not drinking that much, or not drinking at all. Although, yeah, I would say, like, at music events, more often than not, people are getting pretty wasty.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I just think it's so funny, like, when you're, when you're drinking, you think everyone's drinking like you are. And then when you sober up and you look around, you're like, oh, no, there's tons of people totally not doing anything. Right,
or having one glass of wine, and, like, yeah, exactly, which is so funny for me. And oh my gosh, it's the craziest thing. And I've gone like, oh my God, man, like, I was really getting it. Like, oh, shit. But yeah, so it's been interesting. But I've found that I think, like you said, going back to the first 6 months, I think that was probably the most difficult period of time, because learning how to make those boundaries, like, that's the first 6 months where you're learning how to make those boundaries. Once you start getting comfortable with making those boundaries, like, everything is easier. I mean, it's not just like navigating situations where there's alcohol involved. It's like everything in life is easier when you have those boundaries, and when you feel comfortable enough in yourself to know what you want to get out of a situation and what you need out of a situation, and you can verbalize it and create a boundary for yourself. I think boundaries are a beautiful thing, and they can be used in really creative and awesome ways to create a much safer space for other people and for you.
Absolutely. The funny thing about boundaries is you don't know where they are until you cross them sometimes.
Oh my gosh, exactly, 100%. And sometimes you don't know exactly what you need or want, but by finding out what you don't need or want, you can find out. It's like it's like the whole process of elimination thing.
Right.
But yeah, boundaries are interesting in that when you feel like one of them has been crossed, you can definitely more clearly define it and articulate that.
Yeah, and I don't know if this was your experience, but in the beginning, when someone would cross a boundary with me or something, I had like a delayed reaction. Like, I didn't notice it right away. I'd go away from a situation and
totally, yeah,
something would bother me, and I'd be like, "That was totally fucked up." And then,
yeah, no, 100%. Like, was that me or was that them? And then you process it, and you're like, "Oh, that was definitely, like, that was fucked up."
Yeah, right. So you kind of have to be, thank God you're practicing like this mindfulness, because I think it's really in the moment where we can change and grow.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about your song, The Somebody Someone. I want to go back to that because you were able to articulate in such a way that makes me feel like you have such empathy for people who are struggling with addiction.
Yeah, and it comes from a little bit of that. I wrote the song with a friend of mine named Jen Bostic, and she and I have had just similar experiences with our friends and family, and we wanted to write a song, about really supporting somebody, and a song that is a reminder to people that they're not alone in those feelings of isolation, and also talk a song that addresses that, unconditional love and how hard that can be sometimes, and it is hard, but it's just, when it's a family member or someone that you really care about, a partner or a friend or whatever, that you are there for them,
Yeah, it can be very difficult to practice unconditional love when you're so close to somebody, like whether it's a family member, or you're in a relationship with somebody, or even if it's like a best friend or someone you're really close to. Don't you find it's difficult to be like, okay, what is their responsibility? When are they going to do something about it? And how much of that is the disease?
Yeah, and I feel like that just goes back again to boundaries and really being able to, have a conversation with someone and say, listen, I love you. I love this person. When you're doing these, I don't love this behavior. You can love somebody and you can hate their behaviors.
Absolutely.
At the same time. So being able to really like narrow those things down and verbalize them to yourself and say, okay, well, I accept this, I don't accept that. And making sure that you're not putting yourself in a destructive situation, because those situations can be really toxic. And sometimes it's hard, but sometimes you do have to take a step back. And sometimes you do have to say, okay, well, if you're going to do that right now, then I'm going to need to take a step back, or, here's some, obviously like all of those situations are so different and they're so sensitive and fragile and difficult to navigate. And in a lot of them, there's not really a right or wrong answer. It's really I think the best advice one of my therapists gave me was, behave in a way that you won't regret later. And behave in a way that, you can, at the end of the day, you will feel good about and not regret. So I don't know.
I like that.
It's kind of my experience, but it's like every situation is so different. And some situations are so toxic and destructive that you really do need to get away from them. And that is just the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's so important to have the support of professionals involved.
Right. Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been very lucky to have my parents always supported, therapy and mental health and talking about things. And so I'm really lucky that I came from that background, Yeah,
that's pretty amazing. It's awesome that you have such supportive parents.
Absolutely, 100%. My parents are incredible. I've been very, very fortunate.
Oh, they're going to love to hear that.
I tell them all the time.
I bet.
We're all really close. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, listen, we're coming up on our time, and I wanted to sort of wrap up with some resources for your music and the work that you're doing. I know you have like some Facebook groups and some website stuff, which I'll list in the show notes. But did you want to highlight like some ways that people either can be exposed to your music or your work?
Yeah, absolutely. I make a lot of videos on YouTube. So if you go to my YouTube channel, it's just literally my name, Daphne Willis. You can check out a lot of videos that I've been doing. I've got an interview series called Freaks Like Me that focuses on personal growth, and I interview other songwriters and producers and artists in the music industry, and we talk about they're very little short, kind of fun hangs, and we just talk about new and innovative ways that they are exploring personal growth and things they do in their lives to implement personal growth. You can listen to my music on Spotify, or you can download it on iTunes. And I also have a website, which is just daphnewillis.com, where you can buy the CDs in physical form. There's some like hoodies and T-shirts.
Some cool stuff.
some cool swaggy
I like
stuff.
it.
And then I also have a support group on Facebook that's just called the Daphne Willis Support Group. And there's a beautiful, wonderful community in there of people, and we all post in there all the time and talk to each other in there, and we're all, I think, in there every day. So that's a really cool thing too.
That is very cool. I'm so glad you're doing all that. You got a lot going on, girl. That's awesome.
Thank you so much. I love this, and I love what you're doing. And I just wanted to say thank you very much for having me on.
Yes, of course. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to watching your career just explode. And I commend you. I'm very excited for you. You have a lot. Listen, I just connected with that first song, but you have a ton of music that's amazing. So I will certainly list all kinds of links on my website and on my Facebook page and all that too. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. You have a great day. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Have an awesome day.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.